Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I and my wonderful, hunky, hairy, huggable homos and friends like to get together to dish a bit of film news and review some movies. Coming at you a little bit later this week, but here we are still. With me, of course, as usual, is my wonderful partner in crime and life, Jim Pugliafico.
Hello and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast, everyone.
And of course, Will Lindis is here as well. Welcome, Will.
Hey, welcome back, movie fans. So glad to have you with us.
We are also delighted to be joined by a longtime fan and listener of the show, who's also got his own show now that we're excited for him to tell you a little bit about here in a second. And that, of course, is Felipe. Good buddy, Felipe. Welcome from Real Comics Podcast. Hello.
Thank you very much. It's great to be back on the show. Thank you very much.
Now, Felipe, on your show, you go by Voodoo57. Is that right?
Yeah, Voodoo57 is kind of my gamer tag thing. Also, my buddy I'm partnered up with goes by SpeedyG33. That's Andrew Gonzalez. And we've just used these things have been around forever for us. Our fantasy football names, our gamer tags. And so Voodoo57 is what I go by.
Fantasy football. Isn't that like D&D for jocks?
It is D&D for jocks. It is exactly that.
Now I understand.
Now we get it, yeah. Wait, I don't play D&D either. Okay.
Oh, goodness. Well, Felipe, it's great to have you back on the show. For those of our listeners who have not yet had the pleasure of tuning in to Real Comics Podcast, where can they find the show? How can they tune in?
They can tune in at Real, that's REEL Comics Podcast on YouTube. They can just look for that. We've got several things up there. We generally tend to focus on comic book and comic book movies and comic book TV shows and all sorts of other nerdy stuff. And thanks to you guys, it's given us the inspiration to get started.
Well, I'm glad that we could have some small part in that, but watch the last couple episodes of the show. Well, actually, to be honest, I didn't make it all the way through the newest episode. I sort of got sleepy on the couch earlier. For those of you who don't know, I actually had my gallbladder out, which is why we're doing a show later this week than we normally do. So I've been kind of riding that, like, sleepy recovery. The Vicodin train, you know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, Deadpool, like, Real Comics Podcast. This is awesome. I'm loving this show. Wow, am I having weird dreams right now?
So in other words, within an hour or so, kind of as we're reaching the end of this episode, like, it's very possible that, like, delirious Brad, like, kind of like floating on cloud 9 Brad might, like, step into the conversation. Like, you might be in the middle of going, yeah, the great thing about Deadpool is, like, the part where, like, and just start describing a totally fucking different movie. Like, this is something that could happen, right?
It totally could. Like, I could start talking about the pink Christina Aguilera monsters all of a sudden, you know?
Didn't you have, like, Deadpool dreams or something at some point? Oh, no, maybe not. No?
No, I had Oblivion dreams, but not Deadpool.
That's right. That's right.
Ooh. Yeah. But if you haven't guessed yet, listeners, we're going to be reviewing Deadpool this week. Hence, we have, of course, Felipe from Real Comics Podcast, but we're jazzed to talk about this as well. It's going to be an interesting discussion. Felipe, Will, I know you guys are like major comic book junkies. I'm kind of in between, and Jim, I don't think I've ever seen you even pick up a comic book.
Nope.
So,
once. But that was yeah.
Yeah, he picked it up once just to kind of move it off of the couch. He was going to sit there.
No,
right.
I recently subscribed to a new Godzilla comic book on one of those one of the online apps, and I got like halfway through the first one, and I said, "No, this one's not for me." Oh. And I don't know if that's just, I love Godzilla, and I'm like, this might be a good gateway drug into comic books for me, and it just didn't work. I was not. I don't know if it's the writing of that particular series that I didn't like. I did like the panel artwork for some of the stuff. I thought that was really cool. But I'm a story guy, and if the story and characters don't grab me, then I'm kind of checked out. So.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you're looking for a gateway comic book, you should read the new Groot comic. It's only like 10 issues in or something right now. Groot and Rocket. Really great. I think you'd love it.
Is it awesome. A Groot comic or Groot and Rocket, or what is it?
Well, it's Groot is the title character, but I mean it's him and Rocket Raccoon having adventures.
Ah, cool.
So,
all right.
Yeah,
I'll check
it's a lot
it
of
out.
fun.
The first trade's out too. So
Yeah,
you have them all at your house too.
I don't know what a trade is.
I've got them all on my iPad Pro, Jim. So if you want to read in all its comic gloriness, you certainly can.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks.
Do it.
Tim.
Do it, Jim.
I'll try it out. Hey, I'll try anything out. I will.
If you want to fill that comic glory hole with those comic books, you totally can.
I'll have to try filling it. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway,
I'm not taking
sorry.
the bait. Sorry. I'm not taking that bait.
How appropriate this evening.
Right? I know. Anyway.
Yeah, it fits.
Well, before we get into our discussion of the rated R Deadpool, we actually have a bit of movie news we want to talk about, guys, right? Are we ready to dive into that?
Yeah, we haven't hit news in a little while, so I think it's good that we do that.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
All right, let's serve up let's serve up a hot plate of some movie news. Like, seriously, I follow along the waveform of our sound effect in my head with a bouncing ball, like, every time. I'm like, da, 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 da. Anyway, all right, well, let's kick things off a little bit. Will and Jim, I think you guys both had something you were, like, really excited to talk about. Will, you want to kind of kick that off, and Jim, you can kind of chime in?
Sure.
Yeah, so this is a very thematic movie news in that we're going to be reviewing the Deadpool movie here in a moment, and I've got some Deadpool-related movie news. So there's been a fan petition that's been circulating the web the last couple of days. The second major Deadpool petition, we had that fan petition a little while back. It's like to try to make Deadpool like a PG-13 movie. Well, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about this newest one where people are trying to get Deadpool, not Ryan Reynolds the actor, but Deadpool the fictional character, to be the latest or the newest host for an episode of Saturday Night Live. And this thing is picking up a lot of traction. I mean, it's gotten 24,000 signatures when I looked at it earlier. It's probably well beyond that now. I've seen it shared multiple times on Facebook. I love the enthusiasm. I really love how excited people are about movies and about this character and just kind of joining in on this experience. But at the same time, I hope I'm not like raining on anyone's parade by saying I really don't want to see Deadpool the fictional character host Saturday Night Live. And I think the biggest reason for that is Deadpool's one of those characters who I think a little bit of Deadpool goes a long ways. Like, he is a fantastic character, but he is the type of guy who the more his zaniness is front and center, it does run the risk of overstaying its welcome. We have that happening in the comic books right now. Like, instead of Deadpool being in some comics, he's being shoved into every comic because he's popular, and it makes it less interesting. So I don't want to see Deadpool host Saturday Night Live. Would I love to see Ryan Reynolds host Saturday Night Live, and maybe they do a Deadpool sketch? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't want a full hour and a half of Deadpooling around the Saturday Night Live stage. But that may just be me. Jim, I know you were hot on this news item too. Where's your brain?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not hard over one way or the other. Of course, I'm not a super fan of. I basically didn't even hear of Deadpool till this movie was starting to get marketed. So that I'm not pushing for it. But on the other hand, I am a big fan of Saturday Night Live, and I was doing a little bit of quick research online to see if other characters have actually hosted Saturday Night Live in the past. It's typically an actor showcase, right? They typically have actors or prominent musicians or whatever come on the show and host the show. And they can, during the skits, they get into different characters and stuff, but never really like hosted as a character. I don't want to say never. It's happened with Pee Wee Herman, actually. Paul Reubens did it as Pee Wee Herman, so that is one character. And I think I don't know if the dude from I forget what his real name is, but Larry the Cable Guy. I don't know if he ever did it or not, but I guess it could be. It sounds really gimmicky, but I guess it could be fun. Who knows? It could maybe bring new, a new wave of fans to Saturday Night Live, right? Because you have all those Marvel fans. I don't know how many of them actually watch Saturday Night Live anymore. We've talked about how Saturday Night Live has kind of sagged maybe recently in popularity. This could give it a shot in the arm. Certainly, Deadpool doesn't need a shot in the arm, but on the other hand, if they spaced it out right, it could be a way to keep Deadpool in the public eye between this movie and the next movie also. So, I don't know. I don't hang on every SNL episode, weekly, depending on who the host is. I think you could have a really awesome host going in and the show could be flat, or you could have a really, somebody who you'd think, it's not going to be a good show, and they could have some really great skits coming out. So it could go either way for me. I wouldn't mind seeing it. On the other hand, this is just a kind of a fan's wish at the moment. There doesn't seem to be any kind of official statement that from NBC to say that this is going to happen. So there you have it.
Yeah, and I'm kind of wondering at like how the technicality of it would work too, because like, would Ryan Reynolds be like talking through the mask? Like, would he be mic'd on the outside of the mask? I know for the movie, it's a lot of like voiceover, even when he's like talking to characters on screen. You know what I mean? So,
right.
If he's given a monologue with a microphone, I guess that's one thing. But how would it work? I don't know. If he's in a skit or something.
They could record him. They could record him in rehearsal and then use that as his. And he could just mouth it back during the live. They could totally do that.
The bummer there is that I think the real joy, the real like benefit you would have of Ryan Reynolds / Deadpool like being the host of something like that is the fact that he's really good at like improvisation and kind of doing things on the fly. And so if you do the pre-recorded voiceover, you kind of lose like what could have been the draw of that kind of setup to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard.
Right.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I tend to lean in favor of. I think I'll be the only panelist there because, and here's why. And let me tell you, while I agree with a lot of points that Will just brought up about, enough Deadpool can go enough. You can only take so much until it gets, kind of monotonous. I can see that clearly. But what an opportunity to take this character, get him on TV. We're not, in the movie theaters. Again, because of its rating and everything, there's only a certain group of people who can see this. And maybe if you get him on television and they get that bleep mic, the bleep button ready, I could see him pulling off several skits, breaking that fourth wall. And I'm kind of curious. I would love to see it. And that's just kind of my opinion. I think I may stand alone there, but I kind of, and I did. I signed the petition. Sorry.
Look for Voodoo 57 on there. Yeah, I could totally see something where, let's say they didn't have him host, but Ryan Reynolds did host. I think back in 2009, I was looking it up. He did host it as Ryan Reynolds. What was happening in 2009? What was that? Green Lantern, maybe?
No, I think that was before Green Lantern.
Was it? I don't know. But anyway, they could totally have him back, like have Deadpool do like a cut-in commentary on some of the old Ryan Reynolds stuff. That might be kind of meta and a little bit fun. But yeah, I don't know if Lorne Michaels and those folks are going to agree to do a full-on Deadpool thing. But we'll have to see.
Or if you took over the Weekend Update. Oh, go ahead, Brad.
I was just going to say, I mean, you could even just have something, he doesn't necessarily have to do a whole episode per se, and Will, I think that's where you were going. A Weekend Update would be fun, or he could just do like SNL does lots of shorts, right? Pre-recorded shorts. He could do something like that, right? Where they wouldn't have to deal with the technicality of like, he's wearing a mask, like, where is he going to be mic'd?
He's the perfect one to put his dick in a box, right?
Well, absolutely, right?
Oh, now that would be good. That would be fun if they did a digital short. Right. Have to get the Lonely Island guys to kind of sign off and write on this. But basically, if they did a digital short where Deadpool basically did his thing over like other previous famous, well-known digital shorts like Dick in a Box or something like that. That could be a lot of fun, seeing him with like the little shitty Hall & Oates beard like in the box, and yeah, that would be really, really cool. That if that's the petition, I'm signing that right now.
Definitely. Hey, so it looks like our buddy Paul from San Antonio is ready to enjoy both the show and National Wine Day. He just sent us an image here. We'll let you guys see that. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, he's got his wine, his M&Ms, and his MBP.
That's so awesome. I'm looking forward to. I'm gonna go down and try to see the witch with him this next week. So that's gonna be a lot of fun.
Nice.
Looks like Paul. Looks like he's a plain M&M guy.
You guys get along well in that regard, Jim. Definitely. But Paul, we're gonna be there in like 3.5 weeks. I hope we get to see you when we're down in Austin. That would be great. Bring some wine for us. Anyway, all right. Cool. All right, so Deadpool, SNL, maybe, question mark. We'll see. For me this week, I was very happy to read, as I was catching back up with the real world, that Laura Dern is joining the cast of Star Wars Episode 8. I have been a big fan of Laura Dern ever since the original Jurassic Park. She was such a crazy, awesome standout in Wild. That was last year, right? The years run together. Yeah, Wild with Reese Witherspoon. She was amazing.
Well, yeah, it was like December 2014.
2014.
Yeah. So a year and 2 months ago. But anyway, I'm a big fan of hers. I don't know yet who she's going to play. I kind of avoid a lot of Star Wars news, but this headline jumped out at me and like I couldn't resist. I was like, oh my God, Laura Dern! And they've also officially started production on Episode 8 at this point. So they released a little like 30-second like happy production begins day video that had like a second of footage. But pretty jazzed about this. I know Rogue One is coming out later on, and of course Episode 8 we're not going to get for a while. But what do you guys think of Laura Dern? I doubt she's going to play a villain. She's probably like a good guy or something. I don't know. But thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I love Laura Dern. I mean, not just Wild, but I mean, back in Blue Velvet. I mean, she was in Blue Velvet, David Lynch movie, several movies before that. I really like her in almost anything she does. I just don't think she does that much, these days. But to see her in something really big like that, that's going to be interesting to see what kind of role she gets. And yes, my self-imposed, press blackout for Star Wars movies is still in effect. I'm not going to watch trailers for that. I had such a great experience with The Force Awakens. I did see the first trailer, right? But I'm probably going to try to see no trailers for that this time around.
Wow. Yeah.
So you can tell me what character she is. I'm good with that, but
it won't make sense to us anyways. Like, we're gonna find out she's playing Rixel Pixel, and we'll be like, "Who the heck's that?" We won't know until we actually get in and watch the movie. I'm excited about it. As excited as I am for kind of hearing any non-spoilery and just kind of like generally loose and positive like Star Wars news. Like, this is about. I'm not quite where Jim's at. Like, I watched I think there were 3 theatrical trailers, but I avoided all of the in-depth articles and stuff like that, or like this is who this character is going to be. So knowing that Laura Dern's on the cast is great. Cue all of the speculation on who she's going to be in the internet message boards and all the different people on the forums, like, trying to figure out, exactly who she is and what her role is going to be and all that stuff. Yeah. That stuff's all going to happen. Me, it's just like, cool, Laura Dern's in it, and then when I see the movie, I'll get to see what she's doing in the film, and that's exciting for me. Yeah, so I'm cool with this news. I'm pretty excited.
I'm actually quite excited myself. When I heard that she was going to be in this, I think, from a film standpoint even, not from a nerdy, geeky Star Wars standpoint, from a film standpoint, in a lot of the movies she's done, and maybe especially Wild or even in Jurassic Park, she can stand toe to toe with pretty much anybody. So hopefully she's going to get a part and a role that's got some meat and some chops in it, so we get to see that true sense of who she is, because I like her a lot too. I've got no complaints. Jim, I'm still giving you props. As a matter of fact, our last podcast, we mentioned you and how you stayed away from everything for so long. And some major kudos. I mean, keep it up if you can do that. That's really cool that you can do that as well.
Yeah, who knows how successful I'll be at avoiding them, because I don't turn my Facebook off and silly stuff like that, but I will not seek it out. I can tell you that.
Right.
Yeah. But thanks for giving me the shout out. I'll try to be that. I'll try to carry that flag.
Nice. All right, Felipe, what about you, my friend?
Well, what's got us buzzing over at the Real Comics Podcast, and actually, a lot of our Twitter feed, is the new Daredevil Season 2 trailer that premiered. That shows him in his suit. That's got John Bernthal as the Punisher. And we've also got Electric as a little surprise at the end of the trailer there. And it is something that I am super excited to see. The first season of Daredevil blew me away. I was impressed. I've actually seen it twice. That's how much I enjoyed it. And I am extremely looking forward to see where they take this. To have John on there, and I believe the young lady's name is Elodie Young. I'm waiting to see how she stands with these guys on the small screen, I guess you could say, or on your iPad or on your phone. But Marvel and Netflix, that little group has put together some really good stuff, and I'm really excited to see it. What do you guys think?
100% agree. I actually just finished my second watch through of Daredevil as well. When it first came out, I marathoned it in that first week, and my boyfriend's got a super crazy schedule, and he didn't get a chance to watch it then. So we've been, over the course of the last 2 months, kind of knocking out an episode here, knocking out an episode there, and we just got through it, and yeah, I'm so excited for it. It was that particular trailer really has me pumped up, because you get to see the new costume, which is cool. You get to see the direction it's going, knowing that John Bernthal's in it, knowing what he's going to be playing, the character, and kind of getting a chance to see little snippets of what the conflict is going to be for Daredevil in this next season. I think they're going in a really interesting direction, one I 100% want to see. And this is, a lot of people are already big John Bernthal fans from The Walking Dead, which here will be my little moment of sacrilege. Has not been a show that I've super enjoyed, but I do enjoy John Bernthal as an actor, so I'm excited to see him on television in something that I think will enthuse me the way that other people are already enthused about him.
Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
No, please go for it.
I liked the Daredevil series. I watched that with Brad. I was a little bit maybe reticent to watch it because, we have Flash and the Arrow, or Arrow and Flash, that I don't really watch, but Brad does watch it, so I catch a lot of snippets of the shows. And those kind of are more comic booky, I guess. And maybe my view of this is way off, guys, and you can tell me if I'm skewed, but I see those as kind of more comic booky shows, it's more superhero based rather than drama and interesting storyline based. Whereas Daredevil was more about the character, I guess. At least that's the way I saw it, and less about him, maybe turning into a superhero and fighting bad guys. So shows like that and the Jessica Jones show, I really liked a lot. Kind of shows in that vein I tend to enjoy more than the Flash and the Arrow stuff. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the next Daredevil and John Bernthal. I love him, like you said, from The Walking Dead. Even though that's it. This last episode I think really made me fall away from that show for good. So
ooh.
Yeah. So yeah, but let's bring on more Daredevil. But again, I probably won't watch that trailer.
So Jim, you brought up Flash and Arrow and sort of how this is different. One thing I will say is Arrow started off like the first couple of seasons very much like Daredevil. And that was one of the reasons that I loved Arrow. It was very dark, it was very gritty, it was very much like the struggle of this hero who like walks the line of morality, and it was very kinetic. And one of the things that actually has got me, I'm almost going to stop watching it like live every week, believe it or not. It's gotten so soap opera-y. The cast has gotten so big. There's so many characters, and it's like impossible anymore to have like the core like Oliver Queen like gritty storyline without like 50 other characters and things going on. Like the episode from last week, they spent like 90% of the episode, you know, like in Nanda Parbat with the League of Assassins or whatever, and I'm just like, God fucking Jesus, I don't care. Can we please get back to Oliver? Like, really? Anyway, so this one of the reasons I really love Daredevil is because I feel like a lot of the things I loved about Arrow early on, this show gets right and does better. So I love it. Jessica Jones, kind of in the same vein. Jessica Jones, right. I think they do such a great job with some of these gritty, grounded superhero shows. And I like it better than like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And again, that suffers from some of the same like comic booky. It's more focused on like, ooh, let's be quippy, and ooh, let's have an Avengers tie-in mention, and less about like core gritty characters story. You know what I mean? So mileage varies. I see, Will, you're making faces at me. I'm not saying it's a terrible show.
It's different.
Okay. I'm just saying, comparatively, I think, you know, for me, it makes Daredevil a really great show. And I do like The Flash because sometimes I like light and fluffy and cool science stuff. But I think I'm with you, Jim. I love how it's sort of grounded and gritty and kinetic. That's the other word I just wanted to mention. Like, the fights are so well choreographed in that show. And now, like, thinking of The Punisher and Elektra coming into the mix, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't even imagine what we're going to get to see this season. So I'm pumped.
But it might get away. It might get away from some of the stuff that I like about the show. I think that's, you start bringing in more of the characters, you know, people in costumes, and I might struggle with it a little bit.
I think you'll be okay, Jim. Yeah, I think you'll be okay. And I think Will agree with me here. And you, Jim and Brad, you both just touched on something. In my mind, as far as being a comic book fan and a movie fan, you just touched on the difference between a comic book and a graphic novel. Because I feel that when you watch things like Jessica Jones, Daredevil, those are darker characters. They are flawed characters. They are not happy-go-lucky. Their worlds are not happy-go-lucky. They've got to fight and struggle through the things that they have to accomplish. And I think, you know, that's what you're seeing, and it might be, you know, what's attracted you to it. But I totally agree with what you said about it and with what Brad said about it. And I just see that this whole world is just, it's defining itself. You know, we're also going to get, in the future, we're going to get Luke Cage. That's going to be off of Jessica Jones, and that's going to be, I think, a great show as well. They've got this little machine kind of rolling on Netflix. I know, Will, you want to jump in here. I see that. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely to very much agree with you, actually. I think one of the things to keep in mind with Daredevil and Jessica Jones, why they're so successful, is that they were able to be released as a kind of a serial block on Netflix, as opposed to being an episodic show. So the show structure is very much different, and it appeals to a different set of sensibilities.
It's not Monster of the Week, right?
No, because you know, when you're watching a 22 episode, you know, whether it be Flash or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., there is a certain you know, blank of the week because you're watching it weekly, right? Whereas Daredevil, you're watching it like probably in one day or the day, you know, maybe
like
a
movie, like more like a movie,
right?
Right. And I think that's a big part of it. I think you're going to be pretty excited about what they're doing with season 2. Again, from what we've seen from the trailer, the characters that they're pulling in are not superheroes. I mean, they're superheroes in the fact that, you know, they exist in a comic book universe or what have you, but they very much thematically fit what we saw in season 1. Like, you know, I don't think you're going to see any capes or anything like that. Anything that kind of distracts. You know, you mentioned the Arrow thing. I I almost feel like Daredevil owes a lot of its success to Daredevil owes a lot of its success to Arrow. Like, I feel like it took the things that worked in season 1 of Arrow. Season 1 of Arrow also had a lot of, like, kind of the CW bullshit still kind of mixed in. Like, it would be really dark and gritty, and then there would be, like, a moment of two people, like, fawning over each other, and then it would get back to the good stuff. And that's because, you know, that's part of the network, part of the show, and there's, you know, it's perfectly fine, you know. And I think Daredevil wasn't anchored by that, so it could really just focus on what it needed to do. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Daredevil's so good. Jessica Jones so good. Bring on season 2, and bring on season 1 did this motion poster as part of their marketing right before, and like it was better than any trailer because you knew nothing about any of the characters on it. It was just like a kind of a few second still frame, like this animation of all the characters in this like part of Hell's Kitchen. It was really cool marketing, and I hope they do one for season 2 because that got me so jazzed for the first season.
Agreed. All right, well, believe it or not, we have a movie to talk about, too. Yeah. What? An hour in, we still have a movie to talk about? So what do you guys think? Are we ready to kind of switch tracks and get that train a-rolling?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
All right, excellent. All right, so then for those of you who are maybe not familiar with our format, we actually have a lot of new listeners who came over from our... Yes, that's a cat.
You're having a cat attack.
I'm having a cat attack.
Cat butt.
Cat butt on the screen. So we have a lot of new listeners who actually came on board. They found our show last week for our Hail Caesar and Daddy Hunt the Cereal YouTube video. Guys, that video has like 2,000 views, which is kind of a milestone for us because usually our YouTube videos have like, 80 to 100 views. Most people access the show through iTunes, and that's where all of our peeps typically come from. And I looked at the numbers and I was like, holy God, like what happened? So we've got a lot of new folks who are coming on. We've got a lot of new subscriptions. Just want to say welcome. Glad to have you guys. But since you may be new to our format, basically we're going to talk about Deadpool spoiler-free for probably the first 20 minutes or so. If you're not sure if you should see this one, I mean, we'll give you some advice, but I'm sure you probably made your mind up already. But we'll give fair warning before we go to Spoiler Town. In any event, here we go, our discussion of Deadpool. All right, so Will, why don't you give us a little... Everyone's still laughing. Pretend the cat does not exist. She's not here.
Well, I'm laughing as much at the cat, and also, like, I'm sure, like, you're just like, and now we're going to talk about Deadpool. And I'm imagining the audio clip that just went in, like, that right before we started talking right now, was probably the most rapid fire, like, quip after quip after quip, like, audio drop that we've done.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, Deadpool.
We'll definitely be using the red band for this one.
Yeah. I honestly, I kept thinking about ways to break the fourth wall during this episode, and I couldn't. So a little bit about this movie. This is Deadpool, straight from the pages of Marvel Comics. This is the story of this assassin, Deadpool. He's this guy who has this really deranged sense of humor, a mouth that just won't shut up, and he's on a mission. He is killing and maiming his way up the a particular criminal enterprise until he can get to the bad guy who hideously disfigured him. This is a film that is doing extremely well right now, setting all sorts of box office records for being an R-rated movie. It's not the first R-rated superhero movie, but it's the first of this generation superhero movies to get that R rating. So it's been sort of an experiment, like how will this hold up? Ultimately, I really liked this movie. I think that this film understood the character of Deadpool as he exists in the comics, as he exists to the fandom. I think if you come to it with that sort of background, you're going to find what you want here in film format, which is sort of a hard task. It was really difficult for them to pull this off. They could have fucked this up so easily because this is a character who does tell joke after joke after joke. His whole shtick is being annoying. So they had to give us a character who was annoying, but not so annoying that we were annoyed. I think the way they pulled this off, and we'll talk again, we'll get to spoilers and go into the major points of it, but this film really is a love story at its core, and right around the time that we get used to the Deadpool character and we start telling a bunch of jokes, and we kind of get used to all the fourth wall breaking and all that zaniness, it does a lot of cuts back to a slightly more grounded storyline, which gives us a breather from the Deadpool character. And I think that was 100% absolute genius that they did it that way. If they hadn't, if we had had Deadpool all the way through, or if it had been more of a straight linear progression through this character's storyline, I could have seen myself being thrown, maybe turned off a little bit by the rapid-fire humor. But the script writers really did this, I think, to the best of their the best of their ability. This is a film that I think people are calling it a game changer, and I don't know that it's necessarily a game changer. This is a film that kind of weaves in and out of being subversive and also being adherent to superhero tropes. It doesn't turn the whole genre on its ear. It relies very heavily on those tropes, take a shot, that exist within the genre, while then kind of turning a few of them on its ear here and there. It knows what it is. It's extremely self-aware. I think the acting is solid. I think the action is solid. I think one of the characters I was blown away by was a character, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, a cool little character from she is a very tiny character in the history of X-Men. Like, when you see the list of, like, potential characters they could have chosen from, I mean, she is a footnote in the history of the X-Men universe, and I think they chose her just because her name is weird. And I'm so glad they did. I thought they were able to do something kind of neat with this character, who is not amused by Deadpool. She's not put off by him. She's not like a fanboy, and she's not a critic. She's kind of this weird third wave, disillusioned millennial who gets his humor but isn't impressed by it, and I loved that. I thought this was a really solid movie. I think that it's going to spawn a bunch of weird things in the industry, things being turned rated R because Deadpool was popular, and I think that's going to be a mistake. But as it stands as its own unique movie, I think it's very, very much worth watching. I think you should go out and see it. It's cool.
So Deadpool is dead cool?
It is dead cool.
Nice. Well, Felipe, I feel like I'm cheating a little bit because I watched Real Comics Podcast this week, but tell us a little bit about how you feel, because not everyone else knows your standpoint yet.
Well, let's just say this. What Will said. Good night. Thank you very much.
All right, Jim.
No, I think Will right now just nailed everything. And in discussing it on my own show and then thinking about what I wanted to say this evening, I mean, it's an amazing movie that is done just for Deadpool. Only a character like this could pull off the things that he did in this movie and say the things that he did and react the way that he did. And, I think Will hit it on the mark when he said, I see this as a dark romantic comedy more than any type of hero movie or a comic book movie. I think that the story that they've put in the movie here with his girlfriend is amazing, and I thought Morena Baccarin did a beautiful job. She's gorgeous, she's sexy, and she stands toe to toe with Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. So I was totally in love with this movie. I've run out of things to say, so much so that I actually wrote down, and I want to read because I think it's written the best. The Rotten Tomatoes description of the movie by critics. It's, how they kind of just take the whole thing and lump it into one and just break it down. I think it's just written the best, and how I would put it if I had a chance to be smart enough and think of how to say it this way. It says, and I quote, "Fast, funny, gleefully profane. The fourth wall breaking Deadpool subverts the superhero formula with wildly entertaining and decidedly non-family friendly results. Period." This is a great flick. I hope people get out there and see it. I hope they're not too afraid to go check it out. But again, people of age need to go see this. It almost reminds me of when I was a kid and we were trying to figure out how to sneak into the movie Porky's. I heard two teenagers in the showing that I went to trying to discuss the movie they were about to see and how they were going to sneak into Deadpool and hopefully not getting caught. So, yeah, definitely love this movie. I can't say much more than that. It's great. We'll get into it in spoilers. I got a lot to say there, and I loved it.
Did you turn them in?
I did not.
I would have.
Now, were they just like teenagers kind of by themselves, or were they like two teenagers like on each other's shoulders wearing like a stupid trench coat? Like
no, they were clearly about 13 or 12, and they had bought movie tickets for a movie, and one was trying to convince the other to just go ahead and just walk into the Deadpool instead of the movie they bought. So
Nice.
and I looked at him and I'm like, I can't get mad at him because I remember doing that as a kid, trying to figure out how I could see Porky's. Which at the time was one of those movies that kids just wanted to sneak into. So
interesting. Yeah, I'm sure lots of kids everywhere are trying to get into this movie because it's one of those things where it's like when society tells you not to see something because you're underage, then you have to see it, right? So I totally get that. I would have turned them in, maybe.
Or you could be one of those kids, whose parents are cool enough just to bring them. Like I saw at least one kid in there, and I was like, raised my eyebrow a little bit because she was like, this was a girl, and she was maybe 10.
Right.
And I'm like,
Wow.
I don't know, man. I don't know, man. I wouldn't have done it as a parent.
No.
But I'm not everybody's parent, so there you go.
Right, definitely. But just from me for this movie, I will say I had fun with it. I definitely enjoyed it. It was a little problematic for me though because I had just had like abdominal surgery like 2 days before. So like every time I went to laugh and there were some big laughs.
Oh man.
I'm like trying to hold my insides together. Yeah.
You almost literally busted a gut.
That's exactly. Thanks for stealing my goddamn thunder. That's exactly where I was going.
I'm sorry, Brad. Okay,
Will.
Let's just rewind the tape a little bit. Hey, Brad, how did the humor make you feel?
No, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
Will.
Oh boy.
Oh goodness. See, this is what happens when other people talk first, and then
Well, that's why.
Whatever. It's okay.
First.
It's okay.
You got to get those golden gems out there first. Right?
I guess I got to be quicker on the draw because I think what it is like when people get their stuff out and then they're done and then it's someone else's turn, then they're like, oh my gosh, like I have something I want to add, and it's the organic flow that gets in the way of other people's organic flow.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not going to spend a lot of time echoing what's already been said at this point. I definitely think it's worth checking out. I do want to give a shout out to TJ Miller, though. This guy actually really annoyed the crap out of me on season 1 of Silicon Valley. I'd never been exposed to him before. And just gradually, the more I've seen him in and the more things he's done, the more I'm kind of falling in love with this guy. I'm starting to enjoy his humor. Jim, you better mark this on your calendar. I'm actually looking forward to Silicon Valley returning a little bit because I want to see a bit more of him. Really enjoyed him in this movie. Loved seeing Marina Baccarin here as well. She played one of my favorite characters on Firefly, Inara. I think she's a great actress. She just has this smoky, sultry beauty to her that is amazing. Obviously, I'm a gay dude. Boobs are not my thing. Sorry, ladies. But she's one of those women that just has this sort of beauty about her that's sort of captivating. And not only that, she's a really cool character in the film as well. I like her a lot. And you kind of forget her roots as a character later on in the film. We'll talk about in spoilers, but she starts doing certain things, and you're like, wait, what? She's like the damsel in distress, and it's like, oh wait, yeah, right. But I thought she was great. Ryan Reynolds, of course. My mind has been starting to turn around on him for a while now. Green Lantern obviously left a very bad taste in my mouth. But was it called The Voices, Jim?
Yeah.
That we saw.
Yeah, The Voices.
Really, yeah, loved him in that movie. I thought he was great, and so I was kind of like, Deadpool is a very comedic character. How is this going to go, Ryan Reynolds? But beautiful. I think he did a phenomenal execution. I will say, though, as much as I liked the movie, as much as I liked some of the comedy, some of it did get a little old for me, especially with some of the fourth wall breaking. I know that's his thing, but it got a little cheesy mechanism for me a couple times. Not so much that I'm like, oh my god, this is a bad movie, he needs to like stop doing it entirely. But I just felt like they could have eased off of it a little bit for me, and maybe it would have gone a little further. But this one's definitely a recommend. I mean, no question there. We're gonna go see it again tomorrow. Now that my insides have healed, I feel like I will be able to laugh a little more freely and enjoy it a little better. But yeah, definitely check this one out. Jim, how about you?
Yeah, as much as I'm not a big superhero movie fan, I did enjoy this movie a little bit. I'm not going to say quite a bit because, I went into this hearing a lot of buzz about the movie. How read a few reviews that said, this is, like Will, you said, some people call it game-changing. Obviously, I don't think it's that. To me, it's still the same game. It's just a different character that's brought to the game. In this movie, and I like Ryan Reynolds. Going in, I like the guy. I think he's talented. I think he's funny, and I think this is a perfect fit. I think Ryan Reynolds is a perfect fit for this character. Obviously, he's done it how many times now? I don't know. At least twice in other movies, right? Or at least once in another movie. Slightly different character, but the same character. I don't know. We can discuss that a little bit. I found the structure of the movie very interesting. It started out a little shaky for me because we saw the trailer. I'm not going to spoil anything because I'm going to talk about the trailer. The trailer shows that crazy kind of frenetic action scene on the freeway. Let's just say a lot of that. And when we see that in the movie, I'm like, okay, I've seen this. Where are we going from here? But the movie structures is interesting because they've got, and maybe we should talk about it more in spoilers. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's basically three distinct acts, and we'll get into what that is. I actually like the act in the middle the best. If you guys know what I'm talking about, I think Will, you touched on it. Brad, I know you touched on it. Like more of the character story, right? Mm-hmm. This is the character. This is who Deadpool is. And you're right, Will. I liked the wrinkle in time that they kind of put in the middle of this movie to kind of give the exposition about the character and how he became Deadpool and all that stuff. Good action. I thought the other X-Men mutant characters were kind of throwaway. They could have been any characters for me. I wasn't that enamored with Negasonic. What the fuck does Negasonic even mean anyway? I thought they actually said Megasonic. I'm like, that makes a little more sense. But Negasonic, I have no idea. I just saw her as kind of goth girl superhero to me, who, it's kind of like the, teen angst babysitter kind of superhero girl, and a big metal guy that's like, kind of like the Chrome Hulk, I guess. I don't know what he was, but yeah, and the, again, the tropes are there. You get the dude that wants to, either take over the world or create an army to do this, blah 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 blah, and now we gotta go take him out. Granted, now this character has some personal let's just say motivation, right? Against this villain, so that makes it a little bit more interesting. Yeah, I mean, I took enough things away that I wasn't bored in this movie. I was a little worried though because, like Brad said, he was like a day or two out of surgery, and we're sitting together right in the movie theater, and I'm not laughing very much because I got to be honest, a lot of the juvenile humor in this movie just doesn't do a lot for me, and I think this movie was targeted primarily to two groups of people. That is the comic fan, the comic superhero fan who knows Deadpool and loves that world, and then the prepubescent boy who wants to hear, he wants to see, a little bit of sexiness and a lot of snarkiness and kind of dirty humor and cuss words and all that stuff. That's all great, but after a little while, I get the character. I want to see more of the character, and I got that in the middle of the movie. That was great, but a little bit too much for me. I wasn't this movie's prime audience, I know that, but I still got enough out of it to enjoy it. Would I recommend it? Yeah, it's great. I think it's good for what it is. I think this character is totally different, and I like this character because he's kind of like the same reason I liked Rocket Raccoon in Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it's the same reason I like this guy. If you draw parallels to those characters, there are parallels, right? Rocket was he came about kind of in the same way, right? But then I can think of probably 2 or 3 other superhero characters that come about kind of in the same way too, and get their motivation that way. But when the mask was off, I really liked the movie a lot better than when the mask was on. That's all I'll say.
Mm-hmm. So it looks like we've got a pretty wide spectrum of thought here. Jim, would you say this one's a recommend for you, even though you had some issues?
Yeah, I'd recommend it. I think there's certainly a lot of people and a lot of our listeners that I think would like this movie. Is it a fantastic movie for me? No, but it's a good movie, and it's entertaining for the most part.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, we unfortunately have lost Will. I'm not sure what happened.
Come back to us, Will.
He's not able to get back in. So while we wait for Will, and I'm going to work with him in the background, I figured let's go ahead and just open it up to spoilers at this point. Guys, I mean, if you haven't seen the film yet and you're going to, feel free to step away for a little bit while we dive deep into Spoilertown. But make sure and come back at the end for plugs. Give us about 15 minutes because you don't want to miss those. But spoilers are officially fair game. Where do you guys want to start?
I guess I'll start. I wanted to talk a little bit about the structure of the movie and how I thought it was interesting how there's a giant battle scene at a fight scene, I guess you could say, at the beginning of the movie, a lot of which we did see in that trailer, kind of that highway scene. There's a lot of stop motion. There's a lot of speed ramping techniques used to accentuate the effects in that scene. It's really just it's a lot of noise. It's a lot of quipping. It's a lot of fighting with these enemy dudes. Bad guy versus good guy. You kind of get a sense for what the superhero character is like, and then the middle of the movie is, hey, this is the exposition. This is how Deadpool arose, and this is where we also get the beginnings of the love story for that character. I love that part of the movie and that setup. I thought it was really well done. That's where you get a lot of the T.J. Miller stuff, Brad, that you talked about. It's in that middle part of the movie, and then the end of the movie reverts right back to typical tropey superhero kind of resolution. Good guys beat up bad guys, and that's the end of the movie. Unfortunately, it didn't really do a lot at the end of the movie. I will say another thing I really liked is I'm not a fan of post-credit scenes, but I liked the riff on, you guys know the movie, right? Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Definitely.
I love the riff on Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
At the end.
That was sharp.
Yeah, there's nothing better than having Deadpool do that right at the very end when you think it's all over. What are they going to tease next? And that was a great scene. Jim, I hear what you're saying about how the structure of it and how you felt about it. But actually, kind of on Will's point, I thought that without some of that pulling you away and taking you there or showing you what he is gratuitously through that violence, especially that scene on the bridge, and especially the scene in the end, which I want to get into here in a quick second as I finish my comment. But I think without it, we might have gotten driven nuts with the kind of humor that he brings to it. Do you know what I mean? I definitely think, and this movie's running time is 1 hour and 20 minutes, and as much as I laughed from frame 1, till frame whatever, right at the very end, literally my face hurt, my stomach hurt from laughing so much. It was everything that I expected. There were some great moments in between, and that end scene. I don't know if you caught this, Jim, and maybe you didn't. That was their sneaking away. I don't know if you noticed what they were fighting on, that ship.
Oh, it was one of the heliport ships.
It's technically not a helicarrier, but it is. Supposedly, could that have been one of the fallen ones? So for nerds like me, that was kind of a nice little sneak in. And and you're right. I can't remember who mentioned it. Somebody talked about the teenage Negasonic warhead and where she came from. I read an article that basically that's political, and it is. They said, well, who can Deadpool use from the X-Men mutant world? And they gave him a list, and I think Will brought that up, and then they went through the executives, and they go, well, we don't know what that is. Go ahead, you can use that. And I thought for who she was, she did a great job. Yeah. I kind of want to know a little bit more about this little, angsty goth, tweeting every 5 seconds, teenage Negasonic warhead. So, there were a lot of great scenes in this movie. One of my favorite probably was actually on that bridge when he decides that he needs to fight Colossus to get his point across, which wasn't going to happen. And I don't know if it was more for you to see. Everything? Yeah, so he breaks first his 2 hands, and he turns to the camera and he says, he's like, all the dinosaurs feared the T-Rex, and his hands were just dangling there, you know what I mean? Yeah. Is that a way to show his regenerative process and be funny at the same time? So, there are a lot of great scenes in this movie that we could just probably point out and give everybody the whole thing, but we don't want to do that.
Right.
Brad.
And I like I said, I thought there were a few jokes that I really did laugh at. But like Brad said that he was sore and couldn't laugh much. I was kind of worried that he wasn't enjoying the movie actually, because you could tell when the person next to you laughs or doesn't laugh, and you're like, I know I'm not laughing at the movie, but at some of the jokes, but that's because my funny bone is a little bit different, and the fact that he wasn't laughing, I'm like, oh boy, this movie's he's in trouble if he's not laughing.
Well, here's what it is. I have a mutant power to suppress my emotions. Very Vulcan-like ability sometimes. So I kind of internalize. So I was definitely, people say laughing on the inside, ha ha ha, but I kind of do sometimes. Like, I can be, I don't know. It was definitely funny, but I was suppressing the physical reaction to it. Because I was afraid I'd pop a stitch or something. You know what I mean? But definitely, there were some big laughs for me, and I like the fact that even though it is a superhero movie, it's definitely enhanced by its R rating. The contrast of cutting some dude's head off with a fourth wall breaking joke at the same time, you know what I mean? Is really entertaining to me. I like that. It really hit my funny bone in ways that some of these other movies don't. We were talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. earlier, right? And this penchant, oh, it's a Marvel thing. Obviously we have to have a quip every 5 seconds. You know what I mean? The shtick wears a little bit old, but I think one of the things I like about the fourth wall breaking and how Deadpool approaches the comedy is in contrast with all this gory dark shit happening on the screen. It actually gives it sort of this surrealistic quality that helps it get past my I don't know, my anti quip Marvel shields. So I think it worked great. Will, welcome back. Glad you're able to get back in. We are in spoiler territory at the moment, and we've all kind of sounded off about a few things, but glad to have you rejoin us. What did you think about the fourth wall breaking, Will? Did it work really well for you? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, mostly. This is a movie that relied very heavily on rapid-fire jokes. And when you're throwing out a million jokes every 2 minutes, you're going to run into a situation where some of them aren't going to land. And that's okay. I think Deadpool isn't necessarily, as a character or as a movie, dependent on the strength of every single joke landing as much as the kind of the overwhelming death by 1,000 cuts version of it.
The overall effect, yeah.
Yeah, right. I think most of the time the fourth wall breaking did work. I didn't have any situations where I thought that it was out of place or that it actively didn't work. I think most of the time it did pretty well. And again, I think that's because this was a story that was told in flashback. because it was so much of it was told in flashback. I mean, if you really think about the structure of this movie, it's Deadpool is looking for a guy, and then Deadpool and some friends fight the guy. That is really the entirety of this story. But because you interweave this like story with it, to kind of separating the looking for him part and the finding the part of it, I think that's what makes it work so well. I think what also makes it work so well is the fact that in addition to Deadpool being kind of interesting, you have so many supporting characters that play off of him fairly well. You know, of course, you do have Vanessa. I love her on Firefly, Serenity, and I think what I loved so much about her as a character here was she gave as well as she got. You know, this was not a character who was 100% just, you know, the straight woman, so to speak, for Daredevil to bounce jokes off of. You can tell why they work as a pair. I found a lot of chemistry there, and that makes sense too, because Ryan Reynolds is a dude who he's a comedic guy, but he's a beautiful human being, and Hollywood for the longest time shoved him in so many of these rom-coms. I think that this was also sort of a meta joke about Ryan Reynolds, the rom-com actor. You know, one thing that I thought was sort of meta in a way, and that I think did work, and right before I got disconnected, I think Jim was talking about some of the X-Men characters, and I think part of the reason why they did work so well for me is because of kind of what they stood for. Like, Colossus's role in this movie was to be sort of the representative of like the morality that exists in the other movies. Think about like, you know, Captain America, even Thor, you know, hell, any Marvel DC movie, any superhero movie since the beginning of time is a huge, muscle-bound, you know, square jaw, like, you know, we've got to do the right thing. We've got to make the right choices. We've got to, you know, have our little heroic speech at the end and overcome our obstacles. And Colossus was the stand-in for that. And then Deadpool, because he is what he is, you got to see him bounce off of that. He got to subvert the genre because he was placed against such a stoic representative of the genre.
Yeah, definitely. Well, guys, what else?
What else did I want to mention? I know there was something else in the movie. Oh, I want to mention the supporting role by Leslie Uggams as the blind chick that he lived with.
Totally.
For part of that movie. That was some of the humor I found the most funny in the movie, as opposed to some of his more like, you know, the quieter, quippy moments, the kind of the back and forth. Like they were kind of like an old couple, you know what I mean, living together, and I thought that was kind of cool. I loved seeing her pop up because, to be honest, there aren't a lot of. I mean, you guys, Vanessa, I don't know what her name is, but in the movie, you guys recognize her. I really didn't recognize her that much. But there weren't a lot of super familiar faces in this movie, other than her and Ryan Reynolds, which is cool, right? You don't want to see your movie with. That's one thing this didn't have was a ton of, you know, maybe other than Leslie Uggams was a ton of like gratuitous cameos, right? So I appreciated that the movie didn't go there for that.
Yeah. I think one thing I have almost universal praise for this movie. I think there is one thing that did not work as well for me. And if you're gonna have to cut something, if you're gonna make something sacrifice a little bit, this kind of makes sense. I didn't like the villain too much. You know,
Ajax,
Ed Skrein as
Francis.
Francis. There was nothing on his, you know, on the surface like wrong with the character as much as ultimately unforgettable. Like when people look back on this movie a year from now, they're gonna think like, oh, I really love the part where Deadpool did this, and then they're gonna struggle to remember who Deadpool fought.
No, I agree.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of like the Marvel character model A. You know what I mean? Like you see this all the time with these villains, and that's, you know, I love really strong villains in movies. This one didn't have it, but then again, I'm not sure this movie needed that to be a good movie and to be effective. So maybe it slides by in this movie, even though it was kind of noticed at the end, like, hey, there was a villain in this movie. He really didn't. I mean, he was somebody to beat up at the end, but that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Well,
It's a pass.
I think it's sort of endemic of a larger problem sometimes when like the battles between the side characters were more interesting to me than the main battle between Deadpool and Ajax. And I think a lot of that is the villain, but like I was way more intrigued by like the Colossus Angel fight and the Negasonic Teenage Warhead fight in Angel. I thought that stuff was fantastic. But like then they cut back to like Deadpool going after Ajax. I'm like, all right, can we get through this, please? Get your clips out of the way. Let's switch back over.
That Angel
I mean?
character, I would love to see more of that Angel character.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Badass. I thought she was badass. Yeah.
I agree. And the thing that was so cool about it was we got to see. This is not the first time for us to see, you know, as an X-Men fan. And by the way, like when it comes to comic books, like everyone has the thing where they plant their flag, you know. And mine has always been X-Men comic books. That's what I buy. That's what I read. It's nice having seen Colossus like kind of terribly used in the X-Men movies up to date. It was nice seeing a Colossus who had lines, who had character, who had personality, who got to kick some ass. I really enjoyed seeing that, and I loved seeing them, you know, off of Angel, this really rough and tumble chick. Like I thought that was so much fun, that fight between them. Yeah, 100% co-signed. Like give me more of that.
Mm-hmm. I kind of wondered if, like, at the end, as Angel's being carted off to jail, she's like, Colossus, hey, call me.
Right.
Text me.
You know, they got to start dating. Maybe he'll bring her over to the good side.
That would be cool.
Indeed.
She'd be one of those conflicted, you know, double agent types.
Maybe. Maybe. All right, guys. Well, how do we feel about getting to some plugs?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Felipe, you first.
Well, you know, I'd like to plug my show.
Do it.
It's the new podcast, Real Comics Podcast. My friend for 20 years and I have put it together again with the inspiration of Jim, Brad, and Will. And we kind of tend to focus on the comic book movie, TV show, and other nerdy stuff. I mean, there will be other things, like I tend to watch a little bit of anime from time to time. I do love the Netflix shows, but we tend to spend our time in that realm of the comic book world. So we love bringing that to you. We're having fun doing it. You know, we're learning a lot about it thanks to you guys. And if anybody listening would like to tune in, just check out Real, R-E-E-L, Comics Podcast on the YouTube channel, or you can find us at our Twitter feed, which is at Real, R-E-E-L _podcast. And keep up with the latest on what we have to bring. As a matter of fact, just a quick note, I think we're going to talk a lot about the term that was used tonight on our next show, and that is game changer. What does that actually mean, and is it really a game changer? So that's something we're going to put together for next Wednesday.
Great. I can't wait to hear that one. I think that's a great topic, and you guys are you know, you got your own little niche here, and I think that's awesome to see. You know, keep the fun in it. That's my only word of advice. But you guys are off to a great start.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Definitely have been enjoying the show. Looking forward to next week as well. And
Yeah.
Felipe, if you'll give us your virtual digits, give us those links. We'll be sure to put them in the YouTube video and the iTunes Stitcher Radio show notes, so that our listeners can find you guys. Excellent. For me this week, I just want to give a shout out to the Bowtop Movie Bears. That is our local Movie Bears group that Jim and I run. We are actually going to see Deadpool tomorrow night. That's Friday the 19th. And just find us on Facebook, search for BOTOP Movie Bears. You can subscribe to our events, all that good stuff. We're actually going to be kicking that into overdrive a little bit now that we've got some other volunteer commitments that are no longer on our plate as of the next couple weeks. We'll be a lot more active with that. So definitely keep an eye out on screenings coming your way. Again, Bowtop Movie Bears. And Jim, what have you got?
I saw a couple of little movies. One of which I'm going to only talk about one. Don't worry. One of which was a Pedro Almodovar movie. Will, I know you saw this one because I heard you watch the same thing based on kind of a homework assignment, the movie club assignment from our friends Adrian and Bill on the Green Screen of Death podcast. So shout out to those guys. I love that little segment because Bill has a huge movie knowledge, and he picks one movie a week and gives people assignments to go watch it. That was one I watched. I actually watched that one, Babe, while you were in surgery.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was interesting. I don't know. I found it a little bit hard to focus on the movie because I was watching the monitor with your patient status to hope you popped out of surgery. But I enjoyed that one. But the one I really enjoyed the other night, and this one is on Netflix. It's called An Honest Liar, and it is a look for it on Netflix. It's a great little documentary about this older guy who is a world-renowned magician and escape artist known as the Amazing Randy. His name is actually James Randi. He now dedicates his life to like exposing fake psychics. These like faith healer dudes that prey on people of faith to get them to pay to come in and be like healed. And he dedicates his life to exposing those. This film like hit me in a very unexpected way because I'm not going to give it away other than to say there's some unexpected things that happen in this movie that you should, listeners of this show, I think should watch this movie because this movie is all about a guy who tricks people for entertainment, trying to expose people who trick other people for money. And I found this really fascinating. Plus, there's a great personal storyline that in this movie that kind of comes out of nowhere and kind of hits you in the gut. For an unexpected emotional punch for a documentary of this thing. So it's called An Honest Liar. It's right now on Netflix. If you have Netflix, check it out.
All right. Excellent. Good stuff. Mm-hmm. Will, close us out. What do you got?
So much co-signing for that, Jim. James Randi is one of my personal heroes. Him and the $1 Million Challenge and all of that.
Did you see the movie yet?
I did. Yeah, I watched it about a year ago or so on Netflix. Okay, kind of like a late night. Like I was flipping through and I saw James Randi there. I was like, I didn't even know they made a documentary about him. So so really good pick. Really good pick. The film I want to talk about is one that I had a chance to screen last night. So one of the things that I do here, kind of in my spare time, is I do programming for the Austin Gay and Lesbian International Film Festival, and we had a film that was submitted last year, and it didn't make our deadline. So I didn't get a chance to watch it. It didn't get a chance to play, but our program director had reached out to the director, and they got a screening going to kind of kickstart this season as we're ramping up towards September's festival. So the movie is called Henry Gamble's Birthday Party, and it's this cool little drama all done over the course of a 24-hour period. This boy wakes up on his birthday, and it ends with him going to bed that night on his birthday. He's turning 17 years old, and what's so cool about this movie is it's a movie, it's a gay coming-of-age type movie, and we're used to kind of how those play out. This is nothing like that at all. This focuses very much on the evangelical influences in this person's life, his family, the different people from his his pastor shows up, his all of his kids, friends from church camp are all at this birthday party, and all of them are dealing with the weight of their faith and some of their own personal crucibles in different ways, but it does so in a way that's not heavy-handed or that's not anti-religion, and that's what I like so much about it. Was you could definitely see the pressures, but at no point did it make you feel oh, these people are stupid for being religious or whatsoever. It was very balanced, very well acted. All of the actors, save for Pat Healy and a few other kind of veterans that rounded out the cast, all of the kids were first-time actors, and they turned in brilliant performances. Like, this director did great work with them. So this movie is called Henry Gamble's Birthday Party. It's not just one of those movies that's great if you like gay films. I think anyone can appreciate what's going on here. This movie is not available yet, but it's hitting DVD and video on demand at the first week of May, so May 3rd. So it's a little ways out, but put it on your calendars. 100% worth watching.
Well, you mentioned that this is like a gay coming-of-age story and the evangelism. I thought you were describing Ted Cruz's life story.
No, this is something.
Oh boy, guys.
This is some.
Oh boy.
Wow.
So, it's Henry Gamble, not Ted Cruz. I gotcha.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
I think I knocked Will off the air again.
I think you may have. Hey, so I'm
Sorry,
actually
Will.
I'm gonna do one more quick plug because Jim, I was positive this was gonna be your plug, so I avoided it. I'll keep it quick. The Good Dinosaur actually comes out on Blu-ray here in a few days. So if you have not seen it yet, The Big Bang Theory even recommends that you check it out. I was delighted to see a Good Dinosaur
Nice
mentioned
little product placement in there.
Right. It was like, yeah, it's awesome. Anyway, it's coming out on Blu-ray here in a few days. I think it's the 22nd, maybe?
23rd.
23rd, that's what it is. So definitely, if you haven't seen it yet, it is totally worth a Redbox at the very least. But we're going to be buying it and watching it on our new TV. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah.
Once we get that puppy put up tomorrow, you know. But all right. Well, Felipe, I just wanted to thank you again for joining us on this week's show. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Our pleasure. And we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for the Real Comics Podcast and what you guys have going on over there for sure. And all of you new listeners, glad to have you on board. We've definitely had some of you guys, watching This Week Live. Not so much on the live comments. That's fine. Sometimes you're in receive mode, but always good hanging out with you guys. And those of you from iTunes and Stitcher and you listen on our website, we heart you guys. You're awesome. 3 years into doing the show, right? The Deadpool heart. We're still super jazzed that you're still hanging on with us. So thank you so much. Find this episode and more at MovieBearsPodcast.com. Jim, I will switch the camera to you. I love chimichangas with a Deadpool heart. Love it. All right, everyone. Have a good one. We'll see you next week. Take it easy. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.